So if you don't get the book, hopefully the bookseller will be here in a little while. We'll have the book available. So some people have it. I'm sure Freddy can do something, sign something for you a little later on. And we're going to do a Q&A. We're going to start the book talk with my good friend. He'll be hosting today, T Money from Yo MTV Rap. So come on up, T. We got a little reunion today, huh, T?
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, how's everybody doing today? Good? Good. My man Ralph in the building. Salute to Ralph. Give it up for Ralph. I love this guy. I love Ralph McDaniels and what he does for the community. And I'm very happy to be here. So today, we're going to be talking to an amazing person. Fred Brathwaite, aka Fab Five Freddy. Everybody give it up for Fab, right? And skimming through his book, I just told him I skimmed through it this morning. I just got the book this morning. For those of you who haven't gotten the book, please get the book. It's a great read. He has done so much for the culture. It's crazy. And when I first met him during our time at Yo MTV Raps, there were so many things about Fab that I didn't know. Coming to find out and reading this book, I'm in awe of his accomplishments, man. And we're gonna dig into that. You know, his times growing up with humble beginnings from Brooklyn. You know, his life with his parents, how he found an interest in art. You know, how he developed his craft in art, became a graffiti writer, and so many things. You know, how it all culminated in actually being a host of one of the greatest rap shows of all time, Yo MTV Raps, who actually, you know, and he was the first, even before myself, Ed Lover, and Dr. Dre. Fab Five Freddy was the first to bring hip hop to the world, right? So I say that to say, today, please give it up for my man Fab Five Freddy. Come on over here, Fred. You guys don't mind, we're gonna have a seat right here. No doubt, brother, no doubt. I'm telling them, I'm selling this really hard right now because I know you're amazing. Let me get this mic correct, all right. So I'm selling this because this book, like I just told him, I don't know, there were so many things about your existence. And I feel in a way, kind of, because I guess I was caught up at the time when I did meet you, finally had a chance to meet you. You know, maybe I was caught up with my own career and being part of the Yo family and everything. Just so you know, just in case you guys don't know, my name is T Money from Yo MTV Raps, The Daily Show. This is Fab Five Freddy, the creator, the original from Yo MTV Raps. The Weekly Show. There's two different shows, but they're the same show, same brand, same energy, right? So, in meeting Fab, the only thing I knew truly about Fab is that he did graffiti, right? That he was into art, right? And Blondie mentioned him on Rapture as everybody knows, Fab Five Freddy, right? On the song. So, during that time, I didn't know there was so many things, and in skimming through his book this morning, I come to realize that he has contributed so mightily to the culture. And I'd like to go over a couple of things with you, and maybe we can start from the very beginning. Your time growing up in Brooklyn, I found it interesting that you talked about so many things in the first paragraph about how your family and the people in your community were so interested in owning property and not renting property. And then, you know, you talked about going places, you know, you didn't go to many places. You read, you went to the library, you became a student of art, right?
Yeah.
You know, unlike a lot of other, you know, your friends or people who were in your surrounding community that didn't do a lot of the things you did. You know, you were basically from the very beginning you were different, right?
I was different. Yeah, I was real curious though. That's the bottom line.
Right. So speak a little on that, Fab.
Yeah, like I was, you know, once again, real curious. Grew up in Bed-Stuy. My dad was really into reading. had a lot of magazines, periodicals. He was connected to the jazz scene because Max Roach, the legendary jazz drummer, was my dad's childhood friend. They grew up together. And so they were just real smart young cats that wanted to know everything going on and wanted a better life for us as a people. So that was a key underlying thing. And as that jazz music developed, and you had Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, people of that ilk, Max Roach was the premier drummer, and they were very concerned about stuff. And you know, I would pick up on the music they listened to a lot. Developed a passion for the Thelonious Monk, early on, a piano player, and you know, but I was a typical kid. I did all kind of teenage stuff, played all kind of street games that most of them don't exist no more.
Right,
Grew up in my era, Coca Livio, Kick the Can, you know what I'm saying? All the street stuff we did way before the internet, obviously, but along with that, like I loved books, spending time in the library, and got curious about stuff really young, and that would lead to other stuff.
That speaks to, well, your interest in Monk. Was that the first musical interest that you had in your life? Or
Well, you know what it was? Just being around my dad and his friends
because
playing.
to be honest, how old were you at this
I was
time?
a kid, like, you know, growing up from as early as I can remember. This is what it was like in the single digits.
Right.
So they would be playing jazz a lot, instrumental mostly. And I used to be fascinated that they could tell who a musician was. Oh, that's so-and-so on sax. And I used to be like, how do you know? I'm a kid.
Right.
But eventually, the music of Thelonious Monk, who has a real interesting way of playing the piano, some of the chords sound kind of simple. They sometimes sound slightly off, but they're not. And so it's a unique, distinct sound. And I remember being able to go, wait, that sounds like Thelonious Monk. And they were like, yo, you figured it out.
Right.
So I was developing an ear for jazz, along with remembering some of the stories, and that they were always telling stories about when hearing the music as they were younger people, and so that had an effect on me.
So to me, that made you different. To me, not in a bad way, but in a very eclectic way. Because at your age, I mean, how many kids at your age are listening to Thelonious Monk at all? No one really, right?
Yeah.
So that was telling when I read that in the book.
Yeah.
Right?
But at the same time, though, that was what my dad was playing. He wasn't into nothing too contemporary. My mom's was up on all the hip stuff. Like the first record I buy as a young kid, my mom had owned this record, and when she played it for me, I loved it. But one day playing with a ball in the crib, the ball bounced up on the turntable. It was a record called The Name Game. This is old school shit.
Oh, wow.
And the great thing with a lot of people have told me that read the book, there's a lot of stuff they may not have heard about, and you could go to YouTube and there's the clip, there's the song. So there's a song called The Name Game. My mother gave me $1, said go around the corner. There's a little record store around the corner for me, so I went and bought the copy to replace the one I damaged, and that turns out to be the first record I would buy. Which is almost, if you listen to The Name Game, it's sort of like a rap. Shirley, Shirley, Bo Burley, Banana Fanta, Burley, Fee, Five, some goofy little funny thing.
Right.
And so that's an early remembrance, all stuff that I write about in everybody's fly.
So with that said, so you maturated, you listen to music, and a lot of us did. My parents used to do the same thing. I listened to everything in my house, you know. And I think those were the times where your parents. My parents had the parties in the basement, right?
Yeah.
And you know, with the women with the bad makeup and the cigarettes and the hard liquor, you know, the corn liquor, and you know, my folks were really like that out on the island. But so it kind of made me feel like, wow, that was, you know, Fab was living some of the same energy.
Well, you know what? Because my immediate family, both sides, even though my mother and father were born in New York, we had Caribbean influence from Barbados primarily. But then my mother's best friend, who lived in the house with us, was from North Carolina, and that was like my extended family. So my mother and her were like best friends since they were young teenagers. So she had a Southern thing and that kind of cooking and that flavor. We had the Caribbean energy, the rice and peas going on. So my mother would, you know, I grew up getting the best of both worlds. So
That's what's up.
Good.
So how did you springboard? Talk to us a little about how you springboarded from where you were at this time? Because I know you started migrating from Brooklyn
Okay,
to
so
the city.
I get where you're going. So
Right,
what?
right.
So what's going on when I'm a young shorty is not nothing near hip hop. It's really the mobile disco DJs would bring their
right.
sound systems out into the local parks in Brooklyn. Queens had their own version of that. Cats like Infinity Machine and the
Right.
Disco Twins out here.
Salute.
And in Brooklyn we had like it was Flowers, the original Flowers, Grandmaster Flowers, Pete DJ Jones.
That's
I'm a
right.
shorty, I'm a youngster. I don't have no paper to go to no parties, but I'm hearing all this hip stuff going on.
Right.
And occasionally in the summer, these cats would come out and play in the local parks. You might catch them at a block party. But this was all the talk, these mobile DJs. So I started going when it was a jam, which is what we referred to it as before. It was called, yo, where they jamming at? So I run, go to this park, that park in Bed-Stuy. People like Frankie D, Master D, later DJ Lance were the local cats I grew up listening to.
Right.
So that was something I was into, and it was through that I got an understanding or the first inkling that there was something else going on. I remember one of these DJs, I think it was maybe Master D at the time, he just put on something that sounded so ill. Might have been Apache or Bob James.
At the time of the breaks, everybody was
Well,
rocking the break.
yeah.
Early on. Right?
This is the beginning of the break, so I first hear this and I'm like, yo, that's different. And keep in mind, most of this music you wasn't hearing on the radio, and because the DJs had their own special cuts. I went to this one DJ, I said, yo, what was that? He said, that's the Uptown sound. I didn't know anything more than that, but I figured he either meant Upper Manhattan or the Bronx, so I was on the hunt for the next few years until I finally connected with this new sound that was developing in the Bronx. So I just got real curious about it.
About the music itself, right?
Yeah, it just sounded different. Like, what is that? And so I was like, and I remember the first couple of times I heard beats like this, there was a few kids in Brooklyn that knew a little bit about breaking. So cats would start dropping to the floor, crowd would form around them. Like, what is this? What is that music?
Right,
you know,
right.
the crowd, like, imagine hearing Apache for the first time, if you know what I'm talking about.
Because you saw at that time, most
songs.
of us at that time, before all these break beats and stuff started coming out early on, we were so conditioned to listen to what was on the radio. Right?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't really black radio at the time, still wasn't prominent.
No, it was. That's a good point.
Right.
So the radio that I grew up listening to, it was a brother that took it to FM for the first time, was Frankie Crocker.
Frankie Crocker. Salute to Frankie, right.
Where black folks used to get their black music from was on AM radio.
Right.
You would have a little rinky-dink transistor radio.
Right.
And this black station on there was called WWRL.
Right.
And that's where the black DJs was on. They would talk slick. And, they had the commercials for the Wild Irish Rose and the cheap ghetto wine.
And later you would hear, we would
Or
listen to
the no
Super
money
16.
down, or the no money down furniture.
Remember
which was-
Super 16? Remember that radio station on AM? We used to listen to a station called Super 16 too.
No, that was 1600. That was WWRL. It was 1600.
Oh, so it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought it was different. That goes to show you.
Nah,
right?
that was
this
it.
This is why he's Fat Five Freddy and I'm
No,
Red.
it's all good. I just, I remember a little more than others.
Okay, no question.
But it meant a lot
But it was
to
Super
me.
16 to me. I was like, I never understood.
Yeah,
what-
1600.
Yeah,
It was a WWRL.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the great thing about this era, any of this stuff now, you can go on YouTube and they have little snippets of
no question.
the W. Somebody hit me the other day, like, yo, I used to listen. I think, what was the DJ's name on W? Hank Span.
Right.
I said,
That's
what?
correct.
He
That's
sent me the
correct.
link,
That's
and
correct.
there's Hank Span on WWRL.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. So it was cool. But the DJ that used to be on that station that then went to BLS was a guy named Frankie Crocker.
Right.
And he was like super smooth, and all of a sudden now you hear he's on FM 107.5, and you now needed to go by stereo to get the full effect of when they would do the station ID. It would go WBLS.
And it would bounce to one speaker to the other.
That was like having
Right.
3D, like
Right,
it
right.
was what the hell?
Sense around.
Sense around, like
Right.
what? The speaker went.
Right.
Yo, did you hear that? It was a
Right.
big thing when we were shorties in the '70s, and so that. But the thing about Frankie Crocker that was a big influence on me, he would follow these mobile DJs and go to their parties, and he would play records that these DJs had found, and he would put them on BLS before that was the thing to do. Usually DJs on the radio would follow what was on the playlist, like on the
Right.
on the top 20 black chart, soul, R&B chart, or whatever.
Right.
Frankie Crocker was the program director as well as the main.
That's what I was going to ask. Was he actually the program director?
Yeah, that was his thing.
Yeah.
Percy Sutton owned the station.
Yes, he did.
At WLIB on AM, and then they
And then
had
BLS.
BLS on FM. And Frankie came with the whole thing. He made it really hip. And he would play records that later became the foundations of what we know of as disco. Listening to these mobile street DJs that now are becoming a big thing. So that was all stuff that I was peeping as a kid.
Right.
That was my musical entertainment. You can hear Frankie Crocker on WBL on YouTube as well if you guys wanted to hear some of that history. And then, yeah, so that was a big part of my.
So how did that
We
translate?
have books here.
Oh, by the way,
Oh yeah, that books. Oh yeah. By the way, this book
it's available.
is available for you for purchase today.
I'll sign it.
And then he'll do the signing later, which will be really cool.
It'll be cool.
So,
I want to say one thing, I'm sorry. My good friend Aaron Fuchs is here. So
Aaron Fuchs is here?
he is where? Where is he?
Oh, that's it.
Aaron, where you at, son? There you go.
We
Aaron
wanted
Fuchs.
to make a note of the passing of Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah. That's so.
I said, that's like saying I'm not going to see Coltrane because I've heard my favorite things.
Okay.
Aaron
What up,
Fuchs is
Aaron?
a
How you doing,
legendary
bro?
Record guy, this guy right here, with great ears in music, and that's so true.
Yeah.
Sadly, today we lost Africa Bambaataa,
Oh, no question.
a pillar in hip hop,
Yeah.
big part of the foundation. Apparently, he had some health issues, and so Bambaataa, who's made a great contribution, is no longer with us. So grateful. Thanks for reminding us.
R.I.P. to Bam.
Acknowledge that.
Yeah.
R.I.P. indeed. Yeah.
So let's talk a little about. Well, I don't want to jump this far, but let's kind of talk about your artwork, man. I mean, your artwork is remarkable to me.
Thank you.
know?
So what happens with that as an artist, along with being curious about all this music stuff going on in its early infancy,
Right.
I got caught up in the graffiti thing as a young teenager, which was raging at that time as well in the 70s. And so, boom, nothing too big until graffiti developed and turned into like the ability to make characters and cartoons. It became like a defined thing as opposed to
Right.
just scrawling your name everywhere. And that was an incredible movement going on. I hadn't been that active in it as I initially had been, but I'm watching it. And then I noticed, I'm looking at books about different types of art and in reading about pop art that had happened in the 60s and the work of people like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein.
Right.
I said, wait a minute, these guys are inspired by comics and
Right,
packaging and stuff the same way graffiti writers were. And I started making a connection that seemed crazy to anybody, but I figured like if I could find a kind of audience to listen to this idea that graffiti could be considered art,
Right.
because look at some of the creativity that has grown out of this thing that it
Now,
started.
initially,
right here
it
in
wasn't
New York.
considered an art form.
No,
it was
it wasn't.
considered a nuisance, actually.
Yeah, definitely was considered a nuisance.
Yeah.
A lot of it may have been. We were all wild, crazy teenagers doing it at the time. You know how that goes. But out of that, you begin to see technique and skills really grow. And I began to try to find a way to kind of use it as a platform to move as an artist into making art
Right.
in galleries, find another artist. Because most people, you'd age out of graffiti at that time. When you hit 17, 18, it's time to like
Move on.
figure out
Right.
what's your next move. You're gonna go to school. It's time to grow up, so to speak, and clean up.
Right.
And so, but I saw that it was a possibility to develop it, and so that motivated me to make some moves, connect with some people. It was a complicated thing that I was able to connect with, people that really listened to that and saw the ideas as valid.
So how the
I led to people on the downtown punk rock.
during the time you were doing your graffiti, is that where you formulated your name? Fab Five.
Yeah, the
Freddy?
name came out of that when I connected with Lee Quinones, who's a young Latin brother who was a part of a graffiti crew called the Fab Five. And when I explained these ideas, like I'm breaking down how I think we could move this into art, I showed him what some of the pop artists were doing and how I felt like the work that developed kind of followed that in a way. We became a team, so I became like a member of the Fab Five
Oh, okay.
graffiti crew, but taking it to the next step of it, if you will, which we then did. And so in tagging, I put up Fred, Fab Five Fred. So in that mix,
Your name is very unique. Just want to let you know it's very dope.
yeah, part of the
Very dope
graffiti
name.
movement was kind of like you create almost like there's Clark Kent and there's Superman. You have this whole
Right, different persona, yeah.
So you have a persona,
Yeah.
and it was similar to what early rappers created themselves as sort of a superhero type of character, and graffiti writers did similar things. It was just a way to create another
Right.
identity, so to speak, and a fantasy identity in some regards.
And music is an extension of that, you know?
Yeah.
Just like I on my podcast, I spoke to, I interviewed DMC, and DMC mentioned to me how he didn't want to be a rapper. He wanted to be a superhero, you know? So,
There you go.
you know what I mean? So he was like, and he was able to, you know, express his energy through music as it relates to his music and, you know, and art and everything else. So
And come on, when I grew up, in the time I grew up, all of us spent time in our school notebooks trying to draw
yeah,
our
of
favorite
course.
superheroes.
Of course, yeah.
And when you learn how to manipulate that with spray paint, then that takes it to the street,
Oh, yeah.
which it did. So that was the kind of the early origin, early ideas of that.
So talk to us about this. I know because at this time, see, I knew nothing about what was going on in the city at this time. Because I was still like, well, I was in high school. Maybe me and Drake was still in high school.
Yeah.
But in the city, there was an energy formulating. You know, there was a street culture. There was like punk rockers and like how punk rockers and hip hop people were doing things, and there was breakdancing. And there was all this energy happening, and you were in the midst of all that, which was really cool. You used to go back and forth to the city. Talk to us a little about that, because that's where all of this hip hop started, really. You know, that's where all the energy came from. You know, and whenever you actually do something that has a movement, you can always feel it, right? You can always feel the vibe, right? And that was the vibe at the time that you guys were dealing with at that time down there, right?
Yeah, so what actually happened is, as I'm telling you, I'm developing these ideas and I'm looking for some people I can have these conversations with.
Right.
This wasn't really happening nowhere, really, just in the hood.
Oh.
Initially, it's all good. And so I felt like some of these people in this new wave punk rock, I saw some articles, read about some of these bands. It seemed wild and crazy.
Right.
But I thought some of them seemed so wild and crazy. They're really challenging the existing previous like rock and roll hierarchy, if you will. Let's say, for instance, some of the rock and roll that was edgy and really speaking to the youth, they felt maybe lost touch. They were bringing that energy back, that original raw, like garage, raw rock and roll energy.
Right.
And I thought if I could connect with some of these people and explain some of these ideas, how I saw this.
Right.
And that did happen. I met the people from Blondie, I met other people in the bands, other people in that scene, and they kind of embraced these ideas, became like a mentor, and they kind of opened the doors of like the underground art scene.
Right.
And so I saw that there was a possibility to get things done. The other idea I had as I connect with some of those people, because initially in the media, none of us, well, whenever you would see a young black or Latin person in the press that had a little hip swagger, to me it almost always seemed there was a negative thing going on.
Always.
So a part of what I also wanted to do was to help present us in a different light, along with showing that there's a different art forms going on that hadn't been acknowledged yet. And the idea to do that, I thought, was a film, to like an underground independent movie.
Right, let's talk about it.
And so that idea, once I got connected with the kind of people in the punk rock scene, Blondie, which was one of the biggest bands out of that scene, they were open to these ideas. And I had this, I met this guy who was a filmmaker, underground filmmaker named Charlie Ahern, and I was like, yo, I got this idea to make this movie showing graffiti, this new kind of rap music, wasn't called hip hop just yet, breakdancing, to show this is all one new culture happening in the community, in the hood, whatever. And he went crazy, like, let's get busy. I was like, oh.
Immediately.
He had made super low budget movies, like on Super 8 film.
Oh, okay.
We shot Wild Style on 16, but it was a whole process figuring out, trying to raise money to make this film. Probably Rapper's Delight maybe has just come out, so nobody really knows this is a real culture yet.
At this point, where there are a lot of rap records on not on radio and not on vinyl, period, right?
A couple this is the beginning. So before
Yeah.
Sugar Hill Gang and Rappers Delight blew up, if y'all really know what time it was local New York label called Enjoy Records that put out Super Rappin'.
Robinson.
A couple of records,
Yeah.
Super Rappin' came
Was
out.
Spoonie G out there?
Spoonie G was early.
The
Mighty-
Fatback Band was out before that,
Right, but that wasn't New York.
wasn't-
Fatback Jam, King King the Third or
Right,
whatever
right.
was rapping, but that was something.
Yeah.
But in terms of that New York energy, there was a few local records that
Right.
came out, and then Sugar Hill Gang Rappers Alike broke it open,
Mhm.
broke it big nationally. But very few people, unless you was super tied into the hood, knew
Right.
there was a whole thing going on. And so the idea of this movie was to showcase that, and that became Wild Style. The idea we had was to use all the original people to play themselves. The graffiti writers were the real graffiti writers.
Right.
The guy lead it I hooked up with, Lady Pink, Crash, Day. These are cats that was really doing it hard. Played themselves. We got the break dancers, the Rocksteady crew, and the real major rap groups from the Bronx that was really laying the foundation. Fantastic Romantic Five,
right.
Cold Crush, Treacherous 3, Busy Bee. When we connected to make the film, we spent a lot of time going to parties uptown. So now I've been curious about this. Now I'm plugged in.
Now you're plugged in.
I'm getting
Now
the
you see
tapes,
it, right.
live Cold Crush tapes from T Connection. I'm going to the places and we're figuring out who we're going to showcase in this movie, the Funky 4+1. And so that was how that came together. But what also had come together was myself as an artist. Now there's other people from the graffiti subway scene that are now connecting with galleries on the scene in New York that are now looking at our work and giving us a shot to make work on canvas. And so people like Futura, Crash, Days, Pig, the same people in the movie, we're now all coming together.
Right.
And people are beginning to look at the work in a more positive light. And a lot of us is going on to still be artists.
How did Wild Style do in the theaters when it first came out? Did it do well, or was it like?
It was, okay, so here's how independent movies especially would work back then. Like, not like a big studio released a movie all over the country.
Right.
We opened the movie, first thing we did was we were in a couple of film festivals,
Right.
which is some way independent films get seen.
Till this day, they do the same thing.
Still to this day, we got some of the first money we got to make the film, interestingly, after having a lot of meetings. Nobody really knew anything about this. So when we came in, there's this new culture. We had images of what the graffiti looks like. Here's this new music, played like a cassette. They were like, what? We hear you, but we don't see what you're talking about.
Right.
We got some money to start the thing moving from German television and from English television. We went and proposed, showed them, and they believed in us. They were like, oh, some new stuff.
Right.
So they gave us enough money to get it moving, and then some of the other people we went to was like, oh shit. Then they came in and helped us. So the movie aired in Germany first. This is like 82, 83, real early. And then it aired in England on TV. Then we released it in a theater in New York City, and it blew up.
Oh, okay.
One theater though, but we did real
That's all you
numbers.
needed. That's all you needed. at the
Yeah,
time.
we had a story now,
Right,
back
right.
in how it used to be, like, here's what we did opening week. In fact, we was the second biggest money earner in New York City. Of course, we promoted it, real street style, flyers. Is that me?
That's me right there.
Oh, shit.
I'm so sorry I put my
That's
joint
okay.
on. Anyway, so you were saying, like, it's the number one or the second?
Yeah, it was the number 2 earning film in New York City when we opened. It was a theater on Broadway, the Embassy. I think
The Embassy Theater?
Embassy on 43rd. Anyway, the hood came out. People went bananas to see like the real people on the screen. People was, when people like Busy Bee was rhyming and everybody say ho, the whole theater was screaming back. It was a moment. And then the graffiti people, oh, that's so and so. There go my man.
See, that was a breakout moment for the would-be culture, because the culture didn't even exist at this time.
Not really.
Not
So
really,
that
right.
that got a lot of people from New York that came was blown away.
Right.
And then what began to happen we would then open in another city, and it would not be different because it wasn't the home city,
Right.
but it was like city by city is how it would roll out back then. And we got a lot of good write-ups, and then you use all that to promote it in the next city,
Right.
and then it did its thing. But it was still an underground kind of film. It wasn't mega or major. Cable hadn't happened yet. It later came on Channel 13, something like that. You know,
But it was a good first step. Right?
No, it was a great first step.
Right.
And then as we go into the VHS era and then DVDs, what happened, which blew my mind, like the movie would grow in the same way hip hop spread early on. Like you had a tape, you my man, I'll let you hear.
Right,
You like,
right.
yo, I need a copy.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna hit you up.
Right.
Now you got a copy. You turn to people, what? And so it went hand in hand. Wild Style did the same thing. People that got to see it, beyond expectations, were blown away. And then because some of the people in Europe and in England and Germany and whatever, they lost their mind without even being able to understand it. I always thought the language, because you rapping in English, using slang, how they gonna understand
it, right.
They felt what was being said.
Wow.
They saw who we were, and it blew my mind the way people saw this is an opportunity for me to talk about where I'm from, who I am. And they absorbed every aspect, so that became the seeds that got spread around the world.
So with the advent of video cassette, it got another life. Right?
Yo, another life, which is crazy.
Wow.
And then you would hear these stories, and then when, you know, of course there were a bunch of other films that came out, somewhat kind of copied
Right.
what we did first,
Yeah.
Beach Street,
Breaking, right? Maybe?
Breaking,
Yeah.
Breaking one,
One and
two,
two,
and three.
three, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Trying to get with the flavor, which whatever, that's how it works.
Well, that's how the industry works. Period. It's something.
Listen, I was gonna tell you a story.
It just,
So when they was playing in Beach Street, I had a meeting with them because you know they heard about what we was doing.
Right.
I met with Mr. Belafonte and one of his other people on his team, and they were like, yeah, well, we're gonna show you how to make a real movie. And I was like,
okay.
Like I said, they had good people in it,
Right.
but we were first.
Wow.
And as time went on, you'd see people talk about this is the best, and people would vote like we became a thing.
Right.
Over time, it grew more and more than could be expected. Is basically all I'm saying.
Well, that's interesting.
Real
And
special.
why would he would say that? But this is totally. We'll get into that at another time. But anyway, so yeah, that was it's a great step for the would-be culture, and more importantly, it was a great step for you. I like that because you not. It's so many things. We're going to be here for a long time, so just keep in mind because his accomplishments are ridiculous. So, in talking about you and as it relates to you doing the film, did you learn anything from Wild Style on the
Yeah.
production end? Because it maybe
That was
helped
film
you
school.
later in your life. Okay,
That
there
was
you
my
go.
film school. Yeah, you're right. Good point.
Yeah.
So once again, I had read a couple of flimsy books, had a basic thing,
Right.
got down with this guy Charlie, and we were really making a movie.
Right.
Low budget, independent, but wow, learning, editing, all the classic stuff, and we managed to get this film made, which is remarkable. We had a lot of problems, like screwed up the music and had to reshoot a lot of the big performance scenes in the movies, like a whole.
Things you learn. Right?
Yeah, just trust me, it's a learning process. And so basically that was film school, and at a point later in the 80s, I'm having art shows, I'm showing my work as an artist. A guy by the name of Jean-Michel Basquiat shows up early on, and we link up. He's from Brooklyn like me, we become super tight. Guy by the name of Keith Haring,
Yeah, but they asked you
he
about
shows
Keith,
up.
yeah.
We was all on that downtown art scene at that same time, all trying to do the art thing. I'm also trying to make this film, so doing that thing. And then I'm like, you know, the art stuff is going good, but I'm like, man, you know, I would like to be able to reach people a little more, and this film thing, I think could be cool. I would like to make a music video. This wasn't a big thing yet, but I began, especially like when I first heard Public Enemy, I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to like, I know what this is about politically. I have the understanding of how to put a crew together to make a film. I was lobbying them to try to get to, the first Public Enemy album had come out, and I was they were working on the second album. I'm in the studio, and I'd written concepts for about half of the songs, and they were like,
Interesting.
and people from Jive Records heard that I was campaigning to get a video, and they offered me to do the first video for KRS-One,
Oh, okay.
which is My Philosophy.
My Philosophy.
So all the film ideas and wanting to reach another audience, a bigger, just connect with people in a more immediate way. I felt like film was a cool way to do that. I felt that I was capable, and I got to make My Philosophy for KRS-One. So at that point, it came out good, and then I started to direct other music videos. But then, right after directing that video, something else happens. It's that you become a part of, but I get asked to. Well, this good friend of mine named Peter Doherty.
Salute to Peter, R.I.P. to Peter
Rest in
Doherty.
peace to Peter.
And Ted Demme.
And Ted Demme. Peter was there. He was, because I knew Peter from the scene, and then Ted came in, and they both loved rap, saw that this is something that MTV needed to put on the channel, because they wasn't really representing what was coming out of what was going on in black music. But they were like, man, this stuff is popping, and they would they knew that I had a connection with Blondie. I had been in the Rapture video, and she mentioned me in the song, and they were campaigning and lobbying them. And then next thing you know, I never thought I was like, thanks for thinking of me. Next thing you know, we're shooting a pilot, and we're shooting a show that right away the ratings went through the roof.
Of course, yeah. And you know what's so interesting about that whole thing,
my
Fab?
life.
When you hit the scene, I remember me and Dre was sitting, and we were talking about this one day. And we were like, you know what's so interesting about us four? They kind of picked people that were authentic to the culture, that people would respect. You know, you're not gonna sit and purchase something for someone that you don't necessarily respect. You understand? And you're not gonna be entertained by that. So when we saw you doing it, I was like, well, I mean, that's fab. And that's the first thing you could. Then you go, okay, now what is he showing me? But you initially think that's Fab Five, of course. So what's happening? That's Wild Style. That's Fab Five Freddy. That's That's
among the few that were tapped in like that.
Yeah.
That wasn't a broad thing at the time.
No, but I'm just saying for us.
No, which is what I mean.
Yeah.
I wasn't known. Like it was a nice small group of people that was really
We
tied.
were hip hop. We were really hip hop guys.
You was really hip hop. You would kind of know, which was perfect for me. I mean, it was like, I guess the other thing about me being in Wild Style, which was interesting, and I really lay into this in the book. Being on screen was never a part of my plan.
Oh, interesting.
But what happened is we had Charlie Ahern, we figured out how we wanted to structure this film, and we had most of the people playing themselves, the artists, the musicians, the dancers, but we had there was a character that was the connection between the graffiti scene and the hip hop scene. The inspiration for the character was a graffiti writer who's a legend named Phase 2, who was one of the first wave of graffiti writers to do pieces on the sides of trains.
That's right.
Then he lived in the Bronx. He became a part of the hip hop scene, designing the flyers for a lot of early hip hop parties. So when we were researching, and I had this concept of interconnecting all of these cultures, which really was no precedent to that. To prove it, or what proved it, was when we found out that Phase 2 was making flyers for the hip hop scene. And then when we met with him, he's a really intelligent brother. Once again, rest in peace.
Yes, sir.
But we wanted him to play that part because he literally was that. He had been a graffiti master, and now he was on the hip hop scene. And so that was this character that I later called Fade, who was that connection and ran the rap club where you see the performances in Wild Style.
Right.
But he didn't want to be in the movie, so we were auditioning actors.
Right.
And a little bit before we actually are set to shoot, we had this one character, and the director, Charlie, looks at me. I was like, yo, why are you looking at me like that? He was like, yo, man, I think you can play the part. I'm like, no, man, no.
Forget about it. You were like, no, probably,
I'm not trying to be on screen. That was never in the plan at all. But he basically was persistent, and then the extra few $100s, I'd be able to get my own apartment. I was like, wait a minute, this is a
Okay.
few 100. I'm acting. I'm also like
This
one of
might
the
work.
producers.
This might work for you, right?
I made it work, and I ended up playing that character. in the film.
Well, thank God that He put you in front of the camera because
Yeah.
you know you helped lead the way for myself, Ed, and Dre, and I thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Are we gonna keep talking about the book, or do you guys have any questions? We need questions. We're gonna do some Q&A in a minute.
Yeah.
You know, so
Wide open.
I'm saying let's make it happen, man. So, you guys have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
In your book, you talked about going on to an exhibit in Rome. And
Yeah, yo,
How
yes.
did a kid from Brooklyn end up in Rome
Good question.
at a young
So,
age like that?
yeah, so we had it. So what happened was when I had my whole plans, I connect with the brother Lee Quinones, become a part of the Fab Five, and my idea is how can we take this to another level. I'm connecting with some of the people on the new wave punk rock scene. They're like advising me and whatever. They was like, yo, you need to get some press to talk about this. So they hook us up. We get a little article written in the Village Voice. And in that piece, we get some attention. My home phone number is listed. You can hire us to come and paint a mural. I figured we could figure out a way to make a few dollars. So we was like, okay, we'll spray paint your wall or whatever, $5 a square foot. So that'd be like several $100 to do a little graffiti painting. And it was a picture of me standing in front of Lee's murals. Lee was still one of the most wanted graffiti writers in New York at the time. So we're trying to figure out a way to get to being able to earn a living as artists.
Right.
But at the same time, like Lee was still looking over his shoulder. And so I would go out as the front man. Anyway, this Italian art dealer sees the write-up, calls me up, invites us up to his crib. He's like, yo, here's some canvases. I want to see you do some work on some canvas. We sprayed them up. He said, yo, I want to offer you all an exhibit.
That's
Like,
dope.
boom, in this gallery in Rome. It was like crazy. But he agreed with seeing the graffiti on the trains. He saw a connection with the history of art. He got the pop art connection, just seeing some stuff roll into the station. And that was a big boost that helped us really,
Wow.
execute our plan. But we ended up in Rome, which was a wild story. Me and Lee walking through the streets late at night. I got my boom box with me. I got the ill hip hop tapes. Me and Lee climbed in Rome, late night, just wild. New York street kids climb the fence into the remnants of the Coliseum and sit on the steps where they the gladiators. Just wild New York stuff.
Wow.
Was,
You can't do that now, though. You
Nah,
can't
it's
do
all
that.
fenced in now. I've been to Rome since then.
How you doing? How you doing, brother?
Pleasure to meet you.
When you guys ask questions, just tell us your name and,
Oh, name is Shamal.
Hi, Shamal, how are you?
Good, good. I was about 10 years old when Blondie's video first came out. And in hindsight, like, I had no idea what you said, Freddy, right?
Yeah, that's my name, yeah.
And I didn't grow up, I didn't have cable, so I didn't, of course I've seen Yo MTV around, but
Yeah.
it was kind of in hindsight.
Neither did we. We didn't have cable either.
Yeah.
Me or Fab, when the show first came out, we didn't have cable.
Nobody.
But that's a good point.
Couldn't
that
watch
you-
our own show. That was funny.
Yeah, that's a good point that you say that, because when Rapture came out, only people on the downtown scene that I'm hanging with know that she's talking about me. But that became a #1 record, so people didn't know nothing about me until Yo MTV Raps happened. And when Yo MTV Raps happens, people are like, oh, that's who Blondie was talking about. So that
Yeah,
was like
that's great.
a piece of the puzzle.
Right, but that's not my question.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was
That's okay, brother. Go ahead.
I'm bad.
In the book, every time you go out bombing,
Hey, yo, wait, please. Thank you.
every time you go out bombing on the trains, you with Lee. Did you ever bomb without Lee?
Oh yeah, I bombed without Lee. I didn't get too deep into that. Of course, I was tagging up. I talked about doing tags in Brooklyn, we'd stand on the platforms and hit the train. Not mega pieces, but the first pieces that I did do was when I was in high school at John Dewey. The train yard is next to my school, and I went to shop class, liberated.
I worked there.
You work where?
The train yard.
Wow. So
wow.
back, you wasn't working there back then, I know. He was 10, 11. But that was like, I see these trains. I literally didn't know where the rest of the graffiti happened at, but I'm like looking out the window, I'm like, wait a minute. there's a train yard here, and there's dozens of trains. So one day I just did it. I got some paint from shop class. There was a slip under the fence type of situation. I hit up these trains. It turned out that it was a train that ran on Broadway in Brooklyn. It was the J at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And my homies in my hood in Bed-Stuy saw my name on the train. I tagged up some of them. They went crazy. So that elevated me in my community. Is like, yo, you actually hit a train. Like, what? How did you do that? So that was my little graffiti story. But Lee helped me elevate it to the next level. He was a master. Yes.
Next question.
Peace to Fab. I'm DJ 360.
Hey now.
I actually grew up with Lee's godson in Smith Projects.
Okay, that's where Lee's from, it's Smith.
My question, I got two pertaining to Wild Style.
Go ahead.
I know Flash's scene was shot in Fox Street at his apartment. Did he do, how many takes did he do in that? Was that one straight take?
That was, so yeah, in the film, so here's the story. There's another interesting story connected to the Flash. So Flash is in the movie, he's in his crib at the time, there's an opening in his kitchen, turntables here, I'm sitting over there, he's just going crazy, cutting up Mardi Gras, the whole 9 yards. What had happened was, and I mentioned in the process of making a movie, we learned a lot. The first time we shot all the party scenes, including the final big concert at the end of the movie, we lost all that sound. We had this recorder hooked up wrong, the special kind of recorder you use to record film sounds called a Nagra. And we had it set wrong, we screwed up all the sound. In that final performance, in the first time we shot it,
Furious 5, right?
we had the whole Furious together. It was incredible, a whole lineup. Sound was so bad, although people have said now we might could think about using AI. Still, I gotta convince Charlie, we gotta go to the warehouse and pull the original negative out. That's a whole other story.
So Flash did that one take on 3 turntables. I actually own them tables that he used, 1800 MK2.
wow, man.
But my last question is,
Yeah.
did Don D, CIA, rest in peace, was he Lee's stunt double on top of the amphitheater?
Not on the top of the amphitheater scene. There was another young Spanish brother that used to hang with us that did that scene. But what Dondi did, Lee had almost a religious type of spirituality about how he got down with the trains. He would never let us film him painting a train. So Dondi was the double that did all the graffiti painting of the train in the yards, and also we had built a mock-up of the train that was in Charlie's office to get close-up shots. But that was all Dondi that did that. And yeah, we did some movie magic to make that happen.
Hey, brother.
What's going on, bro? How you doing, man? I'm DJ Talib.
Hey, man.
Brand new man.
Okay.
Video, all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah. You used to dance with them.
Yeah.
My God, I directed. After that, My Philosophy, I did mad videos, including the Brand Nubians video "Wake Up," which my man is dancing in.
What's going on, man?
Yes,
Congratulations on your book, man.
Thank you.
I had a question about, I heard you in, I think, the Drink Champs interview.
Yeah, I did Drink Champs recently.
Naming hip hop, and I know you're a very important piece of bringing like the culture together and the
Yeah.
elements. And then I also want to say rest in peace, Africa Bambaataa, because
Oh,
I
boy.
heard that he's credited as doing the same thing, and I'm just trying to
So yeah, so the way that went, and I talk about that in the book. This is one of the things. I had so many of these stories. I've been just waiting to connect my whole life together. When we were making Wild Style, there really was no official name for it. Is what went down. People would call it rapping, going to a jam.
That's right, there was no name
There was
for
no name that defined it, and so I have been looking at the whole punk rock, new wave, as I saw what we were doing as just as important, but what are we going to tell the press is called? Because now we have this picture repainted that shows these different elements of the culture. So because mad people that rap would in between rhyming, people would do the hey to the hip, the hop, and they would all say it as a part of a way to catch your breath. I just felt like, I told Charlie, we should just call it that because the name is there. I like to describe helping push it into place because there was nobody talking about this as a culture and presenting it how are we going to present it? And it felt like the name was organically being used. I like to feel like I helped push it into place. So as we began to promote Wild Style, we refer to it as hip hop. Of course, I did reach out to Bam, however, and bounce that off of him. He was like, that's perfect. So obviously Bam embraced the whole thing. It's just that in terms of the mainstream public, it wasn't out there yet. Even the handful of records that had come out, a lot of people thought it was a novelty. 90% of all the interviews I would do early on, all the journalists asked, how long do you feel this is going to last? They all thought this was a
That was the narrative.
a goofy trend.
No
they
question.
thought this was some weird fluke
You
shit.
better get a job because hip hop is not going to pay your bills. That's the classic line from the parents.
Yeah, you get some of that because
Yeah.
there was no clear path,
No,
and
not at all.
the crazy paper hadn't happened. But I always believed, just because of the strength of the hundreds of kids that came out to jams, I knew there was a force with this.
Yeah.
People just didn't know yet, and so my idea was, how do we get this? And we got to be able to articulate what this is.
No
And
question.
it just felt like that was a good. The word was there. Let's start using it.
No question. Any more questions?
How you doing, Freddy?
What up now?
Having presence in the origins of graffiti, being present around the originators. Did you continue to keep up with the writers and with the artists in the eras after you? And is there any artists that stuck out to you, whether it's today or in any of the eras after you, and like your people were doing it and helping you?
Well, in terms of graffiti, there's artists that I follow and look at. It's so many different levels and layers now. What I'm still amazed and blown away at is how graffiti also evolved into street art. It's somewhat a thin line between them, but just the things that were done and that we did inspired like so much, it blows my mind. But when I travel, I sometimes will see amazing work done with with spray cans that blows my mind, and I'm just like, Brazil, I'm talking countries around the world. It's really wild. But what I'm noticing lately, and I can't tell you these cats' names, I actually follow a couple of them that do this on my Instagram page. There's a new type of graffiti technique. You guys might have seen this, but don't really thought about what's really going on. There's these cats now that use mountain climbing techniques. Rappelling is known as. They are literally affixing ropes to buildings. There's no way you can access these buildings, and they hang down off these ropes and pull themselves back up and down doing graffiti. They got the mad cans on. They are all over the city. Now that I mention it to y'all, when y'all driving around different parts of the city, Manhattan, Bronx, 125th Street in Harlem, you'll look up and go, oh, wait a minute. If you think, like, see, a graffiti writer, some of that instinct is still in me. Back in the days, one of the achievements of tagging is to have a tag that was what we call a perm, short for permanent, meaning I want to put my name someplace they can never get to it. You know what I mean? You will never be able to do it, and you can't do it. So when the graffiti thing was going on in its infancy, that was a big, and I want to put my name somewhere so it ain't gonna ever get white. You got to see me. What these cats are doing is just that, because I'm like, there's clips, I'm on their IG page. If you just, I'm sure with Google, the way it's working now, if you just put graffiti, rappelling on the sides of building, I'm sure something's gonna come up. And you see these guys got the pages, they clearly got the cameras on their hats, so you see them, they're hanging, it's like 20, 30, 40 feet, like buildings.
Wow. You never think of that.
On ropes, oversized buildings. So that's a new innovative thing. They have mad pieces in different parts of the city.
Wow.
So I'm seeing them now. I'm like, boom, boom. Yo, there's another one.
That's crazy.
So it still goes on.
The gentleman here?
Oh,
Yeah.
brother, in today's world, how can we stop the violence to get brothers involved with the hip hop? We can't be fighting and carrying on. How can we make brothers to listen? Don't be carrying on and fight. This is not going to help us get involved into hip hop. That's the only way that we got to stop this.
That's great that you bring that up because
Yeah, thank you for
around the
mentioning that.
time,
Yeah, thank you for
around the
mentioning
time when Your MTV Rap started, the Stop the Violence
Yes, sir.
video
No
and movement
question.
had just happened, which was incredible. I remember going to a gathering. You know, it's one of the very first tapings of Your MTV Raps was out at, it used to be called Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
One of them big tours
Yes.
with a gang of rap
Yeah,
groups.
Run DMC, you did Run DMC.
Run DMC,
yeah.
Eric
Will
B. and
Smith,
Rakim,
Will Smith, right?
all of them was on the show.
Yeah.
At that concert, somebody got stabbed up.
Yeah.
That was a big story in the paper. That sparked them to do a Stop the Violence movement, where all these big hip hop people came together and made a song and a video.
Yep.
And I just remember that was one of the first videos we played on Your MTV Raps, and that was a big part of the sentiment.
Exactly.
At the then with like
And it was a big deal. It was a big
Kane,
deal.
everybody's in there. KRS,
Yeah, we were at the video. We went to the video.
self-destruction.
Self-destruction, yeah.
Self-destruction. Yes, remember that line? Yes. Hey, just brought it back. Hey, girl. That's what's up. Yeah, that was inspirational at that time because I remember and that led into the conscious movement in hip hop, which we captured beautifully right around that time.
Yeah, no question.
People wearing the African
They
medallions.
took the gold off and put African medallions. Yeah.
Raising those issues about things like
And
that.
it sparked groups, groups that came out,
And then the West Coast
yeah,
did a
on that same
version.
vibe,
West Coast did a version of that called "We All in the Same Gang."
That's right.
That I went
That's
out and
right.
covered with a lot of people from different West Coast
Yeah,
rap
that's true.
groups,
Yeah.
inspired by the place where it started. So that
yeah.
was a good time. We could use a little more in that.
Oh, without question. Right
Yeah,
now, we need
see
that now.
these young rappers. I don't even understand it, man. Some of the nonsense.
That kind of sparks a question I wanted to. We can talk about that. I want to talk about how you felt about the music today, and where it's going.
I mean, once again, there was people making whack records back then. You know what I think about? Every MC,
That's real talk.
including,
That's real.
listen to me, including Run DMC. What was the name of their first hit?
Suck MC.
Like that.
No. That's first.
Suck MCs. I mean, they really hit us on the street.
Yeah, Suck MCs.
Okay, sucker MCs. Every rapper always had a line that referenced you sucker MCs.
Facts.
Even back then, I used to go, who were the sucker MCs? Because everybody, I want to know, who were the sucker MCs?
Right.
Well, in this era,
There's a lot of suckers.
a lot of sucker
Sucker
MCs.
MCs,
I'm not
brother.
going front now. I'm not hating. There's young cats that got bars. I'm about bars and lyrics. That's my
Yeah,
that's
they
my thing.
just lose sight of the
If you
fact
put
that bars
them-
and lyrics are really
if you-
important.
But this cast is putting it together. You
But
put
some of
together
them
some bars and
are
lyrics, some
official.
clever shit. I want to hear that.
That's fact.
And I'm gonna find you, and I'm listening.
That's part of the art form. You understand? Because you have to have metaphor. You have to have wordplay. You have to
Thank
know.
you.
That's part of the craft.
I mean, you know what
bro.
I bring up? People ask me these questions without digging now. Look at how one of the core elements of hip hop is battling.
Boy, no question.
There's
Rappers
5, 6, 10 different rap battle leagues. That's incredible to me.
Incredible.
Cats just remembering whole pages of stuff, going at each other, getting the crowd to respond. I'm like,
Right.
this is amazing.
Of
So
course.
that's never going to convert to a record most of the time.
No,
but the
because
form
a lot of
itself
times when they
is
battle, it's
is-
not in music form. It's in the
yeah,
poetry form.
but still, it's dope. I
Right.
love that.
Yeah,
I
no
love
question.
catching a clip of some cats just saying crazy stuff to each other. It's
Right.
amazing.
It's crazy.
Keeping it, it's like a sport.
Safe.
So the fact that that's developed, I think, is incredible.
My brother here. Thank you.
My name's Gerardo Luis Alvarez. My dad always told me when you walk in the room, you say your name with pride.
No
Okay,
question. That's right.
dope.
That's right.
That's incredible.
That's right.
Maestro, it's a pleasure to meet you. I grew up on you, just like I grew up on Luis Guzman from Loisaida.
Yeah.
You're one of my heroes.
Thank you very
and I
much.
appreciate you. The swag, the vernacular, the way you address people. You had a knack to bring cultures together. That was the thing. It was un don. It was this thing you were born with. God said, Fat Five Freddy, you're gonna bring the masses together. It's one of those cultures that was instrumental. Black culture for hip hop, but the Latino culture. Tell me about your first experience being introduced to the Latino culture, because I know Lee Quiñones is.
Yeah. Well, it goes way before Lee Quiñones, my guy. So, thankfully, a very musical household. Of course, my dad loved all kind of jazz. My mom loved all kind of jazz singers as well as all the ladies. But my mom had a passion for salsa. The passion for salsa. So that rubbed off on me. And so even when I laid my mom to rest, I hired a salsa band to come and play at her send-off service, because the sad stuff would have broke me up. You know, I'd avoid that. I had some nice mid-tempo, you know, have people moving and grooving. So that's always been a part of who I am, you know, in terms of music I love. But specifically, you know, with my jazz roots and hearing my dad and his friends talk about their exploits when they was coming up, they would always speak with reverence and awe about, I don't know if you're aware of this individual by the name of Chano Pozo. Okay, so Chano Pozo is an Afro-Cuban conga player who came up in the late 40s, connected with the bebop cats, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie. This is him coming together with Charlie Parker on, I think, Manteca, A Night in Tunisia, and a couple of songs at the beginning of Latin jazz, literally. And this brother they said he had the Santeria drumming techniques that he introduced. So whenever they would talk about Chano, plus Chano he was a wild boy, he was crazy, his knuckle game was crazy. And unfortunately, I think that might have something to do with the fact that he got blown away really young. But his influence, and then later when you hear and you see documentaries on the development of Afro-Cuban music, Chano Pozo's there, and just, so that's always been a part of the music I've loved. Back in the days, even before Lee, on Sundays in Central Park, Latin cats would be out at the fountain, the conga drums going, just energy beyond belief. So that's always been a part of how I came up and a part of the music culture in New York and things that I've always loved and liked. And I don't even know if Lee was that into salsa music. Lee was more into early hip hop breakbeats actually. But yeah, always loved that. And by the way, I also dipped into New Eureka Poets Cafe back then, which was still going crazy. I went in there a couple of times back in the days when I was still popular.
So you're gonna come through when they reopen on October 31st, right?
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely.
We can make that happen.
Okay,
I
definitely.
happen to know the executive director.
All right, cool. Here we go. Definitely gonna make that happen.
much
Thank
for
you
the
for that,
question.
by the way. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, the question.
Any more questions? Oh, you, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Yes, bro.
Sherwin the artist, hip hop monumentalist.
Okay.
And so you mentioned Rome, and that seemed like it was one of the first earliest stages of hip hop traveling. Can you name 3, maybe to 5, like countries or cities that you were blown away that hip hop has reached as it was developing?
Well, yeah. Those moves I made usually were the first, and then quickly later, I think England and Holland embraced the music really quickly for obvious reasons. They're very proficient in English. And then in terms of graffiti painting, there was actually for my audio book, I did several interviews with people that I really talk heavily about in my book. And one of them is with Futura, who we connected early on and did a lot of stuff together. And he reminded me about a Dutch dealer, Yaki Kornblit, who fell in love with all the stuff that was going on. I didn't really work with Yaki, but he gave shows to Zephyr, Dondi, Ramosi, a bunch of important cats. Crash Days all did shows with him. So a lot of the first paintings from a broader section of artists through Yaki went to Amsterdam first. Those artists all had shows there. I mean, before other parts of Europe opened up. Later, other places in Italy would open up. But once again, England, and the Netherlands first, because of the easy to feel and understand the words. A lot of the early imports went over there. But in terms of the visual arts, definitely the Netherlands because of that guy Yaki, and then it just spread around the rest of Europe.
My name's from Detroit. My name's Jermaine. I'm from Detroit.
What up,
I had
Jermaine?
2 questions to ask you. In the near future, will it be a film coming out about your life and the trials and tribulations you went through?
Well, we Actually, I was working on a dramatic series that I had then myself, and it was kind of based around my friendship with Jean-Michel, which we were developing. But when I started focusing on the book, I'm like, let me just get this done, and we'll see what happens. So there's nothing in the works, but there's been some people that mentioned stuff like that, and the book has just been out a few weeks now. So yeah, if they come correct, I'm wide open to have a conversation.
Now I gotta ask, who is your favorite artist that's from Michigan or from Detroit?
When you say artist, you talking visual, music?
Yeah, music, yeah. Like
From Detroit.
Man, yeah, good, thank you. Oh man. Oh yeah, wow.
Proof.
Wow. Detroit. I've been getting caught. When I get hit with these questions like that, y'all don't know what that happens. You know, shit don't never come to you right then. Then you walk out the joint and be like name after name and shit. And be like, oh shit, damn, I could have mentioned my man.
I tried to drop a few names to help
I
him
heard,
out.
he's like Royce the 5'9".
I'm Roach Van Proof, Eminem.
Eminem, of course, he's incredible. There's something else I know in Detroit.
Said Jay Dilla.
Oh, thank you so much. There you go. And in fact, before Jay Dilla, because he kept his thing really low key intentionally. That's why he could have been a superstar producer when you realize all the hits he produced for different people. But the Platinum Pied Pipers was a group he was involved with that was putting out some dope music, and he was producing the beats for that. He's one of them cats that wanted to keep it low key.
Yeah.
But he had worked with so many great artists, including Q-Tip and this one, that one.
Jay Dilla's official.
And then the kid from the label that he worked with at the end, Stone's Throw, Peanut Butter Wolf, when he passed, Peter let me know, like Peter was going to see him in the hospital, and he broke down, like, I'm like, dude, I can't believe I didn't know about this cat. But he explained how he intentionally kept it really low key. But Jay Dilla, one of the greatest to ever do it, no question.
No question.
Jay Dilla, man, he put some great beats.
Any more questions? Oh, this gentleman back here, he was from. I got you first, and then him.
My name is Shamar again.
Hey, Shamar.
On the vein of Jay Dilla, your friend Basquiat, do you have any of his artwork? You know, any of his graffiti?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Worth millions of dollars.
Well, that's what's awkward about being asked that, because the whole dollar thing connected with his work, it makes it all really awkward. But I like to explain to people, like, when you're an artist that makes art and you're friends with artists, typically artists exchange work, gift each other work.
Yeah.
So all of my friends that would make me making art, here, man, that's for you. I got something for you. So that's what went on throughout making art, especially at that point. But when artists like each other, they homies, they definitely gift each other work. So that's how that goes.
We're gonna wrap up the questions soon, my brother.
Last one. Yo, you did the Protect Your Neck video, right?
No, I didn't do anything for Wu-Tang, but their first time on TV is I'm interviewing them on Your MTV Rap.
That's his facts.
Yeah, I did that. I didn't do any Wu-Tang videos, unfortunately. I would have loved to work with them.
Hi, my name is Khadija. I just have 2 questions. My first question is, what would you tell someone who is an up-and-coming artist? How can they get
Visual
more,
or music?
Visual.
Okay.
How can they get more exposure, more education in the underground art? And my second question is, how come I feel like in California, when I went to California, they had more Basquiat artwork than I feel out here in the East Coast?
Where did you see?
In LA.
But where specifically? Do you remember?
They had a whole exhibit.
Yeah, so what happens with Jean-Michel, he's become such a rock star in the art world. There are constantly museum shows of Jean's work. That show, the last big show, was a show that was in New York first. I think it was called King Pleasure. And his sisters put that together, and they recreated like his studio, and it was so crazy. They had like the way Jean would have his work be all over on the floor. It was wild, but so that was a big show that ran in New York for several months, and then it went to LA and ran for several months. So different museums will have different shows, different parts of his work. It's just, it'll be in New York, it'll be in big cities, different places around the world.
Yeah,
So.
I thought they were just like neglecting New York.
Oh no, that show, that was the last big one, I'm pretty sure. Once again, it's called King Pleasure. And in terms of visual art now, obviously having a really good understanding of how to use social media, the internet, digital technology is developing so quickly. It's hard to be an artist and not use those platforms in some kind of unique way, I think. Clearly, every artist, sometimes people ask me they're looking for somebody to do some spray painting for them. I'm like, yo, the cats that I know, they in galleries now, they're not really doing walls. But when I find something interesting, all of those cats tag their Instagram feed. That's how they sign their work. So it's like, oh, you see at so-and-so. Yeah. When you find their pages, there's ways where you can see. You have to, once again, different artists you have to use that technology in some kind of way, because it's difficult to do. Once again, to find unique ways, I think, is what's important, because that's what's crazy right now. With different technology, the ability to do different stuff, there's a lot of things you can do now to present your work, but you got to be mad clever, because everybody got access.
This gentleman.
So Phil, I noticed you mentioning visual as well as audio art. Could you talk maybe a little bit more about how those two related to each other? And it seems like at one point they shared the culture. Maybe now there's like more of a clear distinction between the two? Or what's your take on it?
I'm not clear on the question.
I was saying earlier you were talking about visual versus audio as far as art, which is all part of hip hop.
Right.
But today it seems like maybe the two have
I see what you mean.
Separated, but that's my opinion. I'm curious to know yours.
I mean, I guess it depends on where you look, where you at. Some people embrace more of the connection between the two and demonstrate. Some places it's merely clear and obvious, or some situations people state it. So that's a good point. I see the question. I think the connection is there in terms of the foundation, how it's displayed, or how you get to see or experience the interconnection. Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks. My name is Philip. I'm a prose writer, and I'm curious. I write on jazz history. Since you have a jazz background, I'm curious what your thoughts might be on the evolution of jazz after this history of hip hop.
Well, jazz is being made. I guess the only thing I can say to that is there's a lot of young musicians that I know, jazz musicians, and it's fascinating. They've all been raised on hip hop, and that's interesting. So they go back and forth. I guess we're going through a crazy period now musically, people learning how to use this new technology, which is racing really quickly. Some artists are figuring out ways of incorporating it. So I think that's somewhat challenging, but I think when the dust settles, it's probably going to be more interesting, because a lot of the hip hop people through the 90s really dug deep into a lot of previous eras of music. It's funny because for my audiobook, I did interviews, like I said, with different people. And I did an interview with Q-Tip in the audiobook. I don't mention him a lot in the book because by the time Yo MTV Raps happens, it pretty much, I wrap the book up. But Q-Tip is one of them artists I'm close with, and he brought a lot of jazz flavor into hip hop in his music. So in the interview I did with him, which is in the audiobook after all the reading, he told me recently about an encounter he had with Miles Davis, reaching out, wanting him to produce what becomes Miles Davis' last record. It was a hip hop jazz connection that Miles was ready to, he was jumping in. Q-Tip was one of the artists he wanted to work with to produce. But Q-Tip is in the process of finishing Low End Theory, so he can't jump on that project. The other producer that Miles did link up with is Easy Mo B. So he did this last project. I'm sure, it's not the direct answer to your question, but I'm sure Miles particularly would have done a lot more once he figured out, because he was courageous and strategic enough to transition from a whole different style of music into another and then dominate like he did when he went from classic bebop into electric. So the fact that he figured out hip hop, was working with Easy Mo B, and unfortunately he checked out right in that time frame.
Right.
He would have went on to do so much more, and I think that would have created more of the natural links. And there's a lot of, it's funny, just the other day somebody was playing me something that RZA did, I can't remember what song, but it was the Thelonious Monk loop.
It probably was.
I didn't even realize before.
That's what's so amazing about hip hop music. It's like water. It's like it's timeless, and it just goes through everything, and it can be anything. You know.
So I think on the musician tip, because that's going to become a special thing with all the ways of creating music with AI, being able to play music and be dope at it is, I think it's still there and could likely increase. And I could see more of those kind of collaborations with hip hop artists, rappers, and people that play instruments, jazz, etc.
Freddie, what's your take on, a couple of weeks ago, there was an article that said that this is the first time in history that vinyl has sold $1.5 billion.
Yeah, I heard vinyl stepping up, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's
like,
amazing.
It's crazy. And I want to ask your take on that, because when I was watching, we were vinyl segueing into CD.
Yeah.
And cassette.
Yeah.
And it's like now, I always say everything old is new again. It's
True.
like now I'm reconnected with my vinyl. What's your take on all this?
I think it's incredible, and that's a great point. They have these, you're probably aware, they have what they call these listening lounges now opening up. Places that got great analog sound systems, real albums on vinyl. The stuff sounds great. And I think there's a younger generation that are learning the quality of those records, the warmth that you feel is something you don't get from the super digital.
No, you don't get the same energy.
CD even.
A tube amp gives you different
yes,
energy.
people are getting hip to the tubes now.
So it's different.
And I love that, and I think it's clearly growing.
Yeah.
That's what that says. It's growing. There's more turntables being sold. Stuff. I don't know if y'all saw the ads. I just paid some. I've been wanting a boom box forever. There's some people that got a Kickstarter. Massive. It looked like the classic joint, but it's got all the new electronics, Bluetooth, this, that, and the third.
Yeah,
double cassette.
I've seen that before.
But it's got the extra power. Right. I was like, I gotta have one.
Bumbox makes that.
That's who does doing that?
It's the replica of the Sharp GF7.
My man right here, so give him an award.
Salute to you, bro.
This kid right here.
Now, I grew up in East Flatbush, so they had a lot of that shit on Utica Ave.
Same here, B, but I can't remember the name of the boxes. I had all the boxes. I had Sharp. What? But that's great though. Thank you.
We got one more question. We want to
definitely look like one of them boom boxes back in the day. So my man know the one.
We want to give everybody the opportunity to buy the man.
I think in May mine is showing up. I can't wait.
There you go. I can't wait. Take a photo.
Mine is red. I got the red one because the other two, the black and the silver,
sold out. Remember the burglar alarm on the joint? Yeah, you couldn't even move the joint. Last question.
Hi, I'm Deanna. I just want to say that also I feel like graffiti is also, like, not to say it ever died, I am a graffiti artist.
Okay.
I've never really gotten to get my stuff out there. Well, I grew up in Staten Island, so we always got the tail end of everything.
Right.
You know, we had to take a bus, a boat, and a train just to get to where you are, you know.
He said a bus, a boat, and a train.
You know,
It's
I
so
went
true.
to high school with some of the people from Wu-Tang, so that really brought us out. We grew up in the harbor where the Force MDs were, so they really started, you know, making the island something great. But we had a little tiny train. And our train, when you spray painted on it, it evaporated.
Oh,
it was
wow.
a different type of metal. Because I guess the tax bracket was higher,
right.
And they had these trains, so we didn't have the traditional trains that everyone else had.
Right.
So thank God a friend of mine dated a transit cop, and we used to go to the D train in Coney Island, and he used to sit there and watch us go in and write graffiti on the trains with his dog. So we had a hookup. But now, where I live in Jersey, there's layups for freight trains. And this freight train movement is amazing.
Yeah,
I can
well,
actually
yeah.
go there once a week because you have trains coming from the Midwest, trains coming from California, and the artwork on them is just absolutely amazing.
So is that what you're doing now? You're doing graph on freights?
I'm not doing graph on freight,
Okay.
but I admire it.
No, it's good because there's a doc. My friend Roger Gassman, who built the whole Beyond the Streets brand that gives exhibits of street artists, graffiti, he produces a lot of documentaries and books. And he did a doc, it came out a few years ago. I think you could pull it up on Showtime, on freight train graffiti,
I saw that, yes.
which is incredible. These guys are in their 50s, still bombing trains, freight trains, and having beef with cats on the other side of the country, the same way graffiti people had. Like the kids at his table with his kids. Yo, man, that guy who tagged, he crossed my shit out when I see him.
I'm gonna do something.
And I'm like, these kids at the table with his wife. I'm like, yo, that's
Wow, that's crazy.
One of the crazy things about the freight trains is when you get, because they're like right on the street. So you could like walk right up to it in Linden, New Jersey.
Wow.
They have to hang from the top of the train, going back to this new situation that you're talking about with the kids hanging and pulling themselves up and they're writing like one letter at a time coming down.
Yeah.
Well, these freight trains are monstrous. So you have to hang from the top of the freight train because if you stand next to it, you gotta carry ladders with you. There's no
That's what you
way
do.
that you could get.
Bring what you need to do what you gotta do. The freight train yards are so massive. Some of those trains, 50 cars long, you can move around and get things done.
Right.
And it's fascinating, but you're right. The freight train graffiti scene is where it's popping. It's coast to coast. And if anybody wants to know more, and paint freight trains, talk to the sister here. She got the 411. You know, Zephyr, one of the legendary graffiti artists from back in the days, who's in Wild Style with me, a legend, hits the freights. And in this doc, the Zephyr still going out, doing his little throw-ups. The thing with the freight trains, they also point out, you can't go over the numbers because they track the train.
You see them, they'll make
They do a box. If you want your piece to live, you gotta go, don't cover the numbers. Back in the early New York days, people, the numbers, the window painted everything.
Right.
So that was crazy. But listen, this has been great.
Yeah,
You
man.
guys had incredible
Thank you very
questions. Please get the money.
Thank you guys very much, man. Please pick up this book.
Yeah, if you guys want a book, I'll sign it. Thanks,
That's
T-Money.
Freddy, Everybody's Fly, man, right here, man.
right
Please pick
here.
up the book and have him come.
Thanks, Ralph McDaniels, for making this happen.
And salute to Ralph, man. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Got something right?